Hello and welcome to And All Shall Be Well. My name is Megan Rohrer and I am your host. This week, I am going to tell you some stories from my life and learnings. Particularly, I'll be speaking about ways that you can wade through tough things and make it through to the other side, whether it is spiritual woes or difficulties in family relationships or just personal troubles that are weighing you down. Today's conversation is about how you can go through the muck and mire of life. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's about sitting in it, sitting in the mess. Not sitting in the mess because you are willing to be the scapegoat of your family or of your community, but sitting in the mess because sometimes as human beings, there are hard things that we go through that there is no way around. They are so big and so messy that the only way is through. And my encouragement is not to avoid it, not to numb it, not to pretend it's not happening, not to give a brave face, but to let other people know that you're sitting in it and that you're sitting all the way in it. This idea kind of goes to ancient literature that inspired lots of people. The story that resonates and bubbles up in my heart and is one that I am reminded of is the story of Job, which was this guy who had everything. He had the family he wanted, the job he wanted. He had this connection with the divine that was palpable and inspiring. And then it all fell apart. And people in his life openly debated in front of him, behind his back, in all the directions. Did Job screw it up? And if Job was great and didn't screw it up, then did God screw it up? And if God didn't screw it up, then why is it screwed up? So this is a moment when a big thing happens that the human heart and the human mind has a really hard time figuring out why bad things happen to good people, or why bad things happen in a world with good divinity, or why. It's just any time that something big happens, what do? And there is this part in the story where Job loses so much of what he has that he is now sitting naked in a mud hole. Doesn't have his house, doesn't have his farm, doesn't have anything. Doesn't even have the dignity that comes with wearing clothes. He is vulnerable in every way, shape, and form. And he sits in it. People walking by, people saying, hey, get out of the hole, but he sits in it all the way. Job, if you fast forward the story, he gets the stuff back. He gets a new family. He gets a new wife. He gets new children. He gets new farm. He gets new cattle. He gets new all the everything. If you don't understand how humans work, and this is just a story where you think the only words shared in the story are the only thing that occurred, then you might think it's all fixed. Job's great. Got everything back. But if this is a story that happens to a real human, you notice that a new family is not the family that died tragically. And you notice that the new animals in your life are not the beloved ones that were here before. Even if you like all the new stuff better, there is an ache that lingers even after you've climbed out of that hole and been willing to move forward. Even when things get better, sometimes the grief is still on the inside. The unspoken part of Job's narrative is if sitting all the way in it helped him be happier or braver or more grateful when he made it through to the what's next part of a hard story. Yes, it's easy for people to say, don't worry, good things happen on the other side, you'll learn a lesson. That is not the purpose of today's chat. The purpose of today's chat is to remember that if you feel like you're sitting in it, you should go in deeper. Now, I got to tell you, before I keep talking about sitting in it all the way, that I am not talking about embracing and going so deep into a kind of depression or a kind of grief or a kind of sadness that sucks you so deeply in that you don't feel like you can live into the future. So if you are so deeply into it that living is hard, please pull back, make the choices that are needed to survive through to the next day. If that is not a thing that you are wrestling with, or if you have what you need for this day to make it through, then imagine literally sitting in it. I heard an amazing talk once that reshaped the way I lived my life and gave me a bit more bravery about the fact that I am someone for whom there are laws that try to make my life harder. There are groups of people whose life's effort and their feeling of success comes from putting physical obstacles in my personal path because of identities that I make up, not because I'm some sort of special human who's worthy of that sort of attention, but it just is a thing. And I think those who bear identities that people sometimes want to put obstacles in their path based on race or gender or the places where you live or whatever it is, might relate a little bit to this idea that your stuckness and sitting in the hole might be made by a world that is really working hard to try to make it difficult for you or for people that you love. And I was listening to Pima Chodron talk about some of the Buddhist meditations that she does and the Buddhist retreats that she does. And it was this talk about how she lived through cancer, and particularly lived through cancer as a public figure that people look to for spiritual advice. And so she was going through this hard thing in her own life, but still someone that people would come to try to like navigate the hard in their own lives. And Buddhists believe that the deepest suffering is not untangleable, like you can't be separated from the bestest, mostest, awesomest of our world. So all of it is together. The nothing is the everything, and the joy is the suffering. And by disconnecting from our desire to cling to goodness and capital commercial things, this being able to sit with the hard in the same way we sit with the joy is a part of the Buddhist practice. And you can definitely go to those who are trained in Buddhism and do that kind of teaching to learn much better in-depth ideas about how to do that sitting. But for the purpose of this conversation, it's important to just know Pima Chodron inspired me. And she talked about having cancer. And when she was feeling sorry for herself or feeling the aches and pains of the treatments or feeling downright miserable, she decided to embrace it, to go towards the suffering and the hard by having cancer the most anyone has ever had cancer. And the way she describes it is to say, I was going to have all of it, all of the pain, all of the suffering, so that no one else on the planet can have it because it's completed. Like having cancer to its fullest. And it might not make sense if you haven't walked through or waded through hard things, but the way that I describe it based on this Job story is to say, sitting in it, sitting in the hard all the way through to the end. For me in my life, as someone who has experienced discrimination or experienced hurdles where people make you jump higher and run faster than other people just to get in the door, I experience this as someone who is maybe opening a door that other people haven't walked through, that my job is to take all the discrimination or as much of it as I can, not because I deserve it, not because I want to model that anyone else should take it on, but because if it has to go somewhere And it's a day I have the shoulders to carry it, then I want it all so that no one else who's coming next through the door gets the opportunity to experience it. This is not a desire to be a magnet that attracts bad things. Rather, it's a change in mindset that makes it possible to walk through the hard you were going to go through anyway. It's a way of claiming power in a powerless situation. I have never been in control of how much discrimination other people want to heap at me. As much as people would say, if you were a little less, blah, 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 we would be a little less mean to you. It's not true. Discrimination gets flung kind of like a little kid who decides they don't want to eat something they think is gross. The world says, ew, gross, to whatever it is that they are flinging away, and it splatters where it splatters. Sometimes it comes with your name tag on it, and other times you just caught the splatter that bounced from somewhere else. And that is how discrimination and difficulties and the ways that we hold on to, did I deserve this medical thing that's happening to me? How much did I contribute to it? And how much is genetics and I couldn't have ever changed it? All of that is an interesting study, perhaps, but not something that decreases our pain and our discomfort in the moment that we just have to sit in it all the way. Reminding ourselves that there is a thing that is coming next. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know. We don't always know until we get to the next chapter of the story. But choosing to be someone who will sit in it all the way is an integrity, just sometimes, way to make it through a powerless situation. Here's what I mean. Sitting in something all the way means embracing that sometimes we are called to do hard stuff. Sometimes we're called to compete in a competition set against us where we will never win. But showing up is what makes it possible for us to do the next step. Being you, living through the hard that is your particular hard that you're going to carry, is taking space no one else is going to be able to sit in. When we put all of our time and our energy into not sitting with the hard, we leave ourselves open to experiencing the hard over and over like an echo in the future. And that's what I think trauma is. It's when we experience the hard, the pain, the scary, the agitation that our nervous systems create when we're genuinely going through a hard thing. And it echoes it into the future where those memories come back to us at times that are not of our own choosing. And the feeling inside of our nervous system comes back to us in a time that is not of our own choosing and might be inspired by moments that come to us and remind us of the hard that we weren't fully present to, that we couldn't experience before. Now, you're still going to have hard times. You're still going to remember difficult things in the past, even if you sit all the way in something. But being as fully present as you can, just crying every tear at the moment of the hard, feeling the fullness of the discomfort, not lying to yourself that things are hard so that you might have the ability to ask for help from those who are checking in. Being as honest as we can be helps us to be in the hard in a way that can't vanquish us. If we put all of our time and energy into pretending the hard is not happening, then we're not able to experience the kindness that comes when people see where we are and all that we've been through. The ways that people, have you ever experienced that? When a person will come up to you on a hard day, when you are just going through it, and they'll say something that's completely off in the wrong direction, and it'll make you feel unseen or unappreciated. It makes things harder to pretend it's not happening. For the sake of those you love and those you care about, when it is possible for you. I mean, I don't mean share every detail of every hard thing with every tiny child who doesn't have the capacity to hold that. Sometimes we gotta hold it together so that our family all makes it through a thing. But in the moments that you can, with the people it is safe to be open and honest with, let them know when things are hard. Sit in it the whole way through. You know that release that you get when you vent something, like truly are able to vent something with a loved person or friend who's willing to let you just be like grumpy and wrong and sit in the hard and complain, and they know you're still going to be you tomorrow, even if you go down this mucky, yucky trail of sitting in it. What if that experience was something that you could have in your life? There are so many ways in our society that we are designed not to sit in it. There are so many products you can buy that will make you artificially happy sooner, or mask that you are grieving on the inside so that no one can see it on the outside. But what if sitting with it? What if that time when someone says, "How are you today?" You don't just say, "Good, how are you?" You say, "It's been real hard this week. I don't want to go into it right now, but I'm really sitting in it." The person might not know how to respond because in our society, we are programmed to always say, "Oh, I'm fine." But what if going through that moment and being honest about the hard helps someone else not feel like they have to be overly perfect? There are so many people who are also navigating this world in really difficult ways. Sometimes just being someone who makes it to the other side of the muck allows people to know that it's possible for them to do it too. I know that it's easier to know that things are going to be well if someone can teach you a program of how to get there. Sing this song every day and you'll be full of joy. Read this book and the hard will feel less hard. I would love to give you that gift. But what I have learned in my life is that walking through the muck and the mire, sitting in it all the way, not because I deserve it, but because it's the path to the next thing, gives me the grit and the gristle needed to stick up for my kids when they need it. Gives me the wisdom to know I can do hard stuff when hard stuff needs doing. If you are currently sitting in it, know that I love you and I'm rooting for you. There are whole communities of people that have different ways you can navigate the sitting in it. Whether it's in meditation with other people who will have a little timer and you'll all sit in it together. And there's something about being in a group and meditating with people who are all sitting through some hard, and no one's going to ask you a follow-up question about it. Maybe they'll say something inspiring at the end. They'll ring a bell, and the time of sitting in it ended for that day. You can do other tasks. If you got nobody to sit in it with, know that I see you. And I'm sharing these stories and this message because I know that you're not the only one who's going through this. When it is hard, if all you can do is breathe and make it to the next day, I am proud of you. And really, I mean it when I say it. All shall be well. I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of sitting on it, sitting in it, sitting through it, sitting and just being a work in progress. But I do know that you are beloved, that it is amazing and a miracle that you have sat with all you've been sitting through this far. I'm grateful that you have given me this time, and I will be back again to share some more thoughts about what to do after you're getting a little anxious of sitting with it. So join me again next week, and you can check out my social media if you'd like me to root for you in between those times. Like and subscribe if that's a thing that you do. Take care, everybody.